Feel like no matter how many times I do this, I still get nervous each time. It's been 17 years and I'm still not okay on stage. I always ask myself, what's the reason that I'm a little nervous every time before I start speaking? And I realized that so often people want to hear about my work, about what it is that I do. And I used to think, or I used to describe myself as a person who made her work her life. And recently, I realized that's not true. I didn't make my work my life. I made my life my work. And that's why when I stand up on stage to talk about my work, there is always a little bit of fear, or not fear, maybe insecurity or stage fright, because vulnerability, thank you, because what I'm talking about is not clinical. It's not theoretical. It's very, very personal. I can't separate myself from my work, but not because of that unhealthy attachment or escape. It's because my work is my life. My life is my work. I only have one life, and it is very, very, very important that that is the focus of my life. So, what am I here to speak about? I have a very interesting life. I have a very interesting background, and I have a very interesting, I was going to say job, but it's not job, it's many jobs. So what I'm here to do, I think, is give my TED Talk. And what a TED Talk is, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what a TED Talk is. TED is an organization, and when people are asked to come speak for a TED Talk, they are usually giving a speech that is their life's work. That is something that's very, very unique. That's something that only that they can speak about. So I think that's what I'm here to do. I have a very unique life. I do very, very unique things. I mean, I think you can tell. It's I walk in and I look unique. I mean, come on, how many people named Fally have you ever met, or do you think you're going to meet in your life? You don't get to have a normal life when your parents name you Fally, 3 days after you're born. So my life is, what's my real name? See, that's what it is. My real name is Fally. Yeah, my real name is Fally. That's my real name. No, Pei Aleph Lamed Aleph, for those of you who never heard it before, who will never hear it again, it is the letter Aleph spelled backwards. That's what it is. It is the letter, I'm the oldest. What else? My next sister's name is, no, it's not. Her name is Bleeny, which starts with a Bays, but no. So I could stand here and I could tell you all about my unique life, which started really the moment I was born and really branched out. I mean, I have been a practicing hypnotherapist for 10 years, which is something that people are like, can you tell me more about? I went to intimacy school to become an intimacy counselor, and when I was in school, and I'm from Borough Park, I'm married to a rabbi, and I was kind of like, what am I going to tell people that I do? And my teacher said, don't worry, wherever you're going to go, like 90% of people are going to come over to you and say, can I talk to you? She was wrong. It's not 90%, it's 110. I also ended up diving into a very obscure form of work called breath work, which is the power of the breath to be our ultimate healing weapon. It is the first gift that Hashem gave to us upon, being born into this life is breath. So I can really spend all of this time talking about any one of my passions, any one of my unique interests, but that's not my TED Talk. That's not what makes me and my talk special. But in order to understand what it is that I have to say and where I'm coming from and what it is that I want to share with you, I have to go a little bit back to tell you where I come from. So when did I start making my life my work? I don't really have a clear moment. I can't really define that for you. But I can tell you about a very big moment in my life where that was very, very apparent. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a kind of cancer. And I don't need to tell you that when you're 16 and you are at the top of your game and you're popular and you have all of your friends and you're doing well in school and you're already looking forward to your 11th grade and you're 1.5 years away from graduating and you have your whole life, your whole future planned out, or at least dreamed out, and then you get news that, you might not even live to see your 17th birthday, it wakes you up. It makes you think about life differently. And it wasn't just that I had to focus on surviving, on becoming well, which meant that at 16, I was already making my life, my physical survival, my work. I was very, very, very blessed. because even though I got a wake-up call that would never have gone away at the age of 16, I got something extra. My doctor shared with me, and I was 16, and he said to me, "You must have had a very difficult year last year." And I said, "Yes. How did you know?" I had switched schools like 4 times in 4 years. Something like that, 4 times in 4 years. I had been bullied. I had been in a school that I really, really didn't like. I had a really difficult past few years. And I said, "How did you know that?" And he told me, "Because your body knows how to heal itself. When you get a paper cut, you don't check to see how that's healing. Your body knows what it's doing. Your body has cancer cells all the time. They're a fluke. It happens all of the time. Your body knows how to kill cancer cells. So if your body has not figured out how to kill the cancer cells and have in fact allowed them to just multiply out of control, that means you must be under some form of stress. And there are 2 kinds of stress, right? There's physical stress, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not sleeping enough, or there's emotional stress." And he said, "I'm going to guess that you were under a lot of emotional stress." And he left me with something to think about, because that was at 16, but at 15, I had had Epstein-Barr, and somebody recommended, Epstein-Barr is like mono, someone recommended that I read John Sarno's book, Mind Over Back Pain. And so at age 15, I already knew that your mind creates your reality. At age 16, when I had cancer, my Western doctor was telling me something very similar, and it really planted a seed that stayed with me for a long time. It was always kind of itching at me. Why aren't more people talking about this? How can I find out more? What does this mean? And what are the practical applications? So then I got better. Surprise! I'm a survivor, and I wrote a book. Surprise! It's on some of your shelves. It's not written under my name. It's written under a pen name, Tzippi Katen. There's a reason I chose a pen name. It's because I didn't know I was going to be famous, but hi. No, really because I didn't want to embarrass my in-laws. No, sorry. Toby's not my in-law. We're not related. There are lots of Kleins. Toby said that if I do very well, she'll take all the credit, but if I don't, we don't know each other. I'm sorry that someone just ruined it. No, one of the reasons that I wrote my book under a pen name was because I didn't want to be the cancer girl forever. I was nervous going to places and saying my name, and people would say, "You wrote that book on cancer," because I knew that there was going to come a life after cancer, and there was going to be so much more to my life than just something that happened to me at 16. And so I wrote a pen name to kind of separate myself from that. And looking back, I'm glad I did, because there is more to my life. My life didn't start and end with a book I wrote at 16 about my cancer experience. In fact, people always ask me, "Isn't it weird for you that you basically published your diary?" It's such a personal book. That's what Miracle Ride is. I wrote a diary during the time I was ill, and it was very personal, and it really showed the miracles of my journey, miracles that I couldn't see when I was in it. I was only able to see once my journey was maybe a year out. And people say, "Isn't it awkward for you that anybody stranger, can read your book and know everything about your life?" And I look back at them and I say, "You think that one book that I wrote about 1 year of my life when I was 16 is my life? No, there's been so much more to my life." So what people don't know is that after cancer, something else happened. I went into a deep depression. I spiraled in anxiety and depression for years. And the reason people don't know about it is because, do I look like someone who's depressed? Do I look like somebody who has anxiety? No. I'm an overachiever. I'm a perfectionist. I'm always smiling and making very snarky jokes. So nobody would believe that under all of this success, under all of this achievement, under all of this spunk and joy, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of anxiety, and there was a lot of depression. And nobody warned me that this was actually a really common after effect of being through, having gone through something as life-altering as cancer. I thought when I was diagnosed, and I even told this to my doctor, "I'll do anything. I'm fine. I'm never going to complain. I never make an issue. I roll with all the punches. You just tell me what to do. You tell me to show up for chemo, I'll show up for chemo. I will even smile as my hair falls out. I did. I can prove it. I took pictures. Also, I let my brother shave my head because when my hair started falling out, I was like, it's disgusting. I can't keep waking up with hair on my pillow. So when my mother wasn't home, I have 5 brothers, and I gave them my shaver, and I said, please go to town. And they did. And it was a lot of fun. And my mother came home in the middle. She caught us. We were a little bit in trouble. And she made this face. I'll never forget it. She had this face. She walked in carrying groceries. And then she very, very slowly, and all my brothers stopped breathing. And then she walked very slowly over to the table and put the groceries down. And she says, I'm going to go make cupcakes. Because if we're having an upsharon, we may as well have cupcakes. So, but I really thought that once my doctor was going to say, you're done, you're finished chemo, that I was going to pick up my life right where it left off. But that doesn't happen. I was not the same girl who started my journey. And my friends, or the world, they didn't wait for me. I came back into a world that I did not recognize, and a world that did not recognize me. And so I was forced to move on. And so I did. I accelerated my learning. I graduated at 16. I got married. I did all the things that I should have been doing. And secretly, under the surface, I was having so much anxiety and depression. But no one spoke about it. And I tried everything. No one told me it was normal. No one prepared me for it. Nobody helped me make that adjustment back into real life. And I tried everything. First, I tried escaping. I tried chasing perfection. I tried chasing things that made me happy. I tried chasing dreams. I tried chasing education, college. I got my BA in 6 weeks, and it still didn't make me happy. Nothing. I was just running and running and running. And finally, my husband said, I'm done. You have to go to therapy. So I went, and nothing helped. And then I dropped out of therapy. And we kept trying and trying and trying. And finally, I remember at one point telling my husband, I'm done. I have to go to therapy. It was my choice. And I went to therapy, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And it wasn't enough. And then my therapist looked at me and said, I am done. And I said, are you breaking up with me? Because I have abandonment issues, like by God, you know. And she said, I just don't think there's any hope for you. And I think you need to be going on medication. Now, I'm not opposed to medication. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think everyone needs to do what works for them. But I remember feeling this slap in my face at age 24. I said, wait, 1 second. I beat cancer with a huge smile. Like, I did it. I wrote a book that was a bestseller. It went into 5 printings. I've been speaking on stage all around the world. Like, I know what I am, and I know what I can do. So I'm not opposed to going on medication, because if it's the right thing for me, then that's what I'm going to do. But you're telling me at age 24, after I've already done things that nobody will ever do, and nobody will ever do as good as me, that here I'm stuck. This is it. I didn't get stuck with cancer. I didn't get stuck with shaving my head and making an upsharing party for my brothers. None of that fazed me. But now at 24, when I'm healthy, when I'm a mother of 3 children, and I'm thriving, now you tell me I'm hopeless? Something didn't add up. And I remember saying, okay, there's an answer. There's an answer, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to figure this out.
Medicine cured your cancer.
It absolutely did.
So why would you be so judgmental?
I'm not judgmental. I am absolutely not judgmental. I was just saying, I am not judgmental of medication. But I also felt that something wasn't adding up. And I didn't know what it was. And you see, when I took chemo for cancer, it was very clear that you will take protocols for a certain amount of time. And then basically what we're doing is getting your body back on track. Remember that when I was 16, my doctor had told me, your body knows how to heal itself. So when it came to cancer and it was a protocol to get me back to wellness, I understood. I understood devoting myself and accepting medication to get me back to a place of wellness. But what was hurting me and what I didn't understand was that was not what my therapist was saying to me. She wasn't saying that I have a plan to get you back to wellness. She said I have a crutch. And of course, I believe in a plan to getting back to wellness. And if medication is part of that plan, please, by all means, use it. Use it with my blessing and my encouragement. But that's not what my therapist told me. She said, you're broken. She said, I give up on you. She said, I don't know a way to fix me. She didn't know a way to fix me. When I had cancer, my doctor wasn't looking to fix me. He was looking to help my body remember what it already knew. that I was amazing and my body had the answers. My oncologist, who was practicing Western medicine, could tell a 16-year-old girl, you've got this. Your body knows how to do this. We're just here to give your body a reminder. But the psychologist couldn't tell me that. And that's when I took a break, because I said, no. Since I'm 15 years old, since I read John Sarno, I know that there's something more, and I want to find out more about that. By total hashgacha, I had nothing to do with it. I wish I could claim this part of my journey, but I can't. Hashem sent me information, awareness about the field of hypnotherapy. And I ended up totally by chance, I didn't want to do it for my anxiety at all. It was really my husband. He wanted to try hypnotherapy, but my husband's scared. So he sends me a lot to be his scapegoat. That's why I did LASIK and he didn't, because when he saw me and my LASIK process, he's like, I'm never going under the knife. So, in general, my husband's, I'm his advanced, what do you call it? Advanced battalion. So he sent me to try hypnosis because he was curious about it. So I went in there and I just chose to work on my anxiety without a real belief that you could work on your anxiety, because my therapist told me you couldn't. And without going into the details of what hypnosis is and how it works and why it's so amazing, because that's not what I came here to talk about, it worked. But it also taught me something. By the way, it's been 10 years and I don't have anxiety. I am really the chillest person in the room. And when I mean the chillest person in the room, Toby can verify this, I always wear a hoodie. Like, I would actually be wearing a hoodie right now, and it's on the front seat of my car. Like, I actually don't sweat. It can be 110 degrees, and I don't sweat. So the only reason you're not seeing me with a hoodie is because I'm trying to be formal and appropriate for you people, but the minute I leave, my hoodie goes back up. But I tried hypnotherapy, and I learned something so amazing, that my mind really does create my reality. Because when somebody is anxious, usually they're worried about something that didn't even happen yet. When someone is depressed, they're usually depressed about something that happened a long time ago. It's not really in the moment. When you look at the moment that surrounds somebody who's anxious or depressed, their moments are usually fine. But what's the problem? They can't live in the moment. And what is blocking people like me, what was blocking people like me from living in the moment, were my thoughts about the moment. What I was thinking in the moment, about the moment, was actually preventing me from living embodied and present in the moment. And that was a profound realization for me, at age 24. Except it wasn't really that profound, because it was something I kind of knew, because that's how I had done cancer. So like, to give you an example, two people go through the same cancer. They both take the same chemo for the same amount of time, and they both survive. One does it with humor, writes a book that becomes a bestseller and becomes a motivational speaker and goes all over the world. The other becomes a hypochondriac with severe anxiety and depression and never goes to doctors, or always goes to doctors, or is afraid to go to doctors, but goes anyway and makes her doctors crazy because she's afraid she's going to get sick. So what's the difference? What's the difference? What makes these two cancer patients come out completely differently? It's a mindset. It's an attitude. And before I get all platitude-y on you, it really is a choice. But I never understood this. What does it mean it's a choice? What do you mean? I chose this? I never understood the concept of bechira. Because I was that kid, and I know my school principal is here, so she knows. I was that kid in Beis Yaakov when our teachers would teach about bechira, right? So they would be like, Hashem gives you bechira, and you can make any choice you want to make. And then I would be the one who lifted my hand and said, no, what about like predestination? Hashem knows what you're going to do anyway. So there's no such thing as bechira, because he knows what you're going to choose, right? And also, I know, I have to correct that, right? I know. That's why I'm here. Right, you're not my school principal. You weren't the principal when I was there. Right. But then she hired me. She was my principal, but in a different capacity. I wasn't her student. I was her employee. Okay, which is almost weird, but okay, anyway. Yeah. Now you know what you hired. Yeah. And I never understood this idea of choice. I said, I don't understand. If Hashem says 40 days before you're born or you're conceived, you're zivug, then what do you mean you have choice? What is this whole shidduchim game? There's a zivug, there's a zivug. What does any of this mean? So then, all of my teachers, because I was in school for a long time, right? And I had many, many teachers, and I did this with each one because why not? You just want, my daughter does it. Wow. Wow, we really do pass this on to the next generation. My daughter does this, where she'll repeat to us something. She's like, I asked my teacher a question, and this is what my teacher said, but last year I asked my other teacher the same question. I was just comparing to see if they had the same answer. Wow, now I know where she gets, I get so annoyed when she does that, but now I know where she gets it from. Okay, I should apologize to her. So I would ask the same question every year, and I would say, what's the truth? Do we have Bechira or do we not? And if you were like me and you went to any kind of Beis Yaakov school, you got the same answer because I think they teach us in Beis Yaakov Teacher Seminary. And they say, it's like a mother and she gives her kids a choice of 2 lollipops. And there's a red one and there's a green one. And she knows her kid is going to choose the red one. But she still gives her kid the option of choosing the green one. But the kid always chooses the red one. And I was the kid who said, but what if the kid chooses the green one? And the teacher would say, it's just a mushal. And I would say, it's not a very good one. Come up with a better one. And every year I would have the same conversations with my teacher. And guess what? I grew up to be an adult and a mother of children, and I still didn't understand Bechira. Until last year. Until last year. It was COVID. And our entire Erev Pesach prep was different than it would normally be. There was a lot less panic, a lot less rush, right? We were doing a lot less in our homes. And we weren't going out of the house. We weren't working. And I actually, for the first time in my life, had time to sit and learn for Pesach. And I was sitting and learning. And I was fascinated when I was sitting and learning because I have this concept called Cinderella Judaism that I think most of us, well, not here, not if you're here, obviously, but for many of my peers, we left school, and the last time we actually learned something was when we were in school. So we kind of take the Judaism that we know for granted, but when was the last time that you actually studied Parsha, or you actually studied Halacha, or Yahadus? Most of my friends haven't. And so I call it Cinderella Judaism because when I grew up on Disney, I grew up on Cinderella, and I accepted it as totally normal. And then, when I was raising my kids, I was raising them a little differently, and we didn't bring movies into the house, and they didn't, I don't know, it never happened. It wasn't something intentional, it just never happened that they knew who the Disney princesses were. And then, my daughter got a set of Disney princess underwear. And she was looking at them, and she says, who's this one? And I was like, that's Cinderella. And she says, who's Cinderella? And I'm like, I can't believe you don't know who Cinderella is. Oh my gosh, what am I doing raising my kids wrong? So I sat her down. She was 4 years old. She's 12 now, but she was 4 years old. And I told her the story of Cinderella. And I started saying, so there was a girl, and then her mother died. She's like, that's a terrible story. I really don't want to hear this story. And I said, no, it's okay. It gets better. Her father remarried. Okay. Her stepmother was evil. No, Mommy, it's a terrible story. I don't want to hear any of this. And I say, yeah, but I promise, it gets better. And I keep going on. And then they didn't let her go to the ball. She's like, Mommy, that's a terrible story. Please don't tell me any more of this. And I said, no, I promise, it gets better. And then her fairy godmother shows up. And she says, what's a fairy godmother? And I'm like, just shush. And then her fairy godmother gives her glass slippers. And then she stops and she says, Mommy, glass slippers give you blisters. Okay? None of this story. And she was 4. And I'm like, she's right. She's right. And I never thought of it that way because what happened? I was raised with Cinderella all of the time. I just accepted it for granted, and I never thought about what a silly story it was. And I realized that in many ways, I was doing the same for Judaism. I learned Judaism at a young age, at an age where you don't really ask a lot of questions, and then you accept, and you accept, and you accept, and then sometimes your kids ask you a question, why, and you don't know the answer, and also you don't know why you've never thought about it. So last year, Erev Pesach, during COVID, I started learning. I was learning about Pesach, and I was learning the story of Mitzrayim, and I was really going through it, and I got stuck. I got stuck on where Hashem hardened Paro's heart. And all of the Mefarshim run in over there, and they all jump on this, and I'm like, why is this such a big deal? It's part of the story. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. Hashem hardened his heart, and And when I looked deeper into it, what was the problem that all the Mefarshim had? Because the heart is where you have true Bechira. And Hashem does not interfere with your Bechira, and that was the one place he did. But that is the one place that because he interfered with Paro's Bechira, that's where we learn the real truth of Bechira. Bechira has nothing to do with your actions, and it has nothing to do with the outcome of those actions. It doesn't matter which lollipop you choose, because the choice doesn't start with your reaching for the lollipop. The choice starts in your heart. I did not choose to get cancer. You cannot tell me that my life, that circumstances and the events of my life are a product of my choices. Some of those things were predestined. I don't know why I had to get cancer. Maybe I had to get it so I can speak up here in front of you and spread my message. Who knows? Nobody asked me, but I did have choice. I had a choice in the attitude, in the way I chose to perceive my cancer, in the way I chose to speak about my cancer, and in the way I chose to then take action about my cancer. So, after pursuing hypnosis, because once I found it, and it was fascinating to me, I said, wait, the world needs to know more about this. Your mind really does create your reality. In hypnosis, I realized that I had nothing to be anxious about, but my mind was wired to be anxious. My mind was wired. There was a belief system in my mind from a very young age that if you lose control, very bad things are going to happen. And so from a very, very young age, I learned that in every situation, I had to be in control at all times. I'm sure you can imagine what having a cancer diagnosis did to me, because for a control freak who's a perfectionist, to receive a diagnosis that you couldn't expect, that really tore your entire life away from you, and then you couldn't go back to that life. You had to instead say goodbye and mourn and grieve that old life and start a new life. Of course, my anxiety was out of control, but not because my life was out of control, but because my mind was out of control. My heart was out of control. They were racing all the time. I need control, I need control, I need control, I need control. There was nothing to get control of, but there was this belief that I needed to feel in control at all times. And during the hypnosis session, when I was able to see that, and I was able to understand when that belief started in my life, and I was able to resolve that, my anxiety disappeared. And I said, wow, I need to know more about this, and so I did. I made that my life's mission. I became a hypnotherapist. I said, I'm going to study this. Not because I ever intended to see clients or work with people. I don't like people. But I wanted to just learn it for myself. I said, I need to understand myself better. Of course, that evolved into me. You know, it's not true. Well, it is true. I don't like people, but I've never met anyone that I couldn't love. There's a difference. Because underneath everyone's likableness or dislikableness or whatever you want to call it, there's a lovableness. People on the surface are not who you think they are. And when you spend time with people long enough, they always make sense. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, how can I be crazy today? How can I be the meanest person and the most annoying person in the room? Nobody does that. Everybody wakes up trying their best. But there's a reason why your best looks different than my best. And that's your belief systems that have powered your actions throughout your lifetime. So while I don't always like everybody, I've never met anyone that I couldn't love. And hypnosis taught me that. But I didn't end my journey there, because I just have a weird life, right? And you know, after a while, hypnosis stopped being weird. It started becoming mainstream, so then I had to branch out. And that's when I went to school for intimacy counseling, where everyone just wants to know what I do and can they talk to me. And from there, I went into breathwork. And at one point, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, I was just balancing 3 careers, and I was getting burned out. And I was also asking the question that there was 3 careers that I was extremely passionate about. And these are careers that most people just devote themselves to one, and they live their entire life. They can do 40 years in this one career. And I was doing all 3 at the same time. And I was asking myself, something is wrong, because why can't I choose between any of the 3? And I'm either going to burn out or, you know, or drop everything. Until something started clicking for me. Something came together. Sorry, there's this like fly up my nose. I had a feeling inside of me, because no matter what I did, it didn't matter which field of interest, I always felt alive. I always felt like me. And so to ask me to choose between one of the 3 was like cutting off a piece of me, because each one felt valid to me. Each one felt like me. And I didn't know how to choose. And I said, it can't be that I have to choose. It has to be that somehow these are all connected, and then somehow they all connected. And it took some time, but something very strange happened after a while. I would sit down in session and meet with new clients that I had never met before. And I had these crazy feelings of deja vu. Like, I feel like I heard this story before. And I probably didn't, because everyone's unique and everyone has their own life. And there's no such thing that I heard your story before. But I felt like I did. I felt like I was seeing the same, hearing the same words, same blueprints, same patterns over and over again. Until it clicked for me. What I realized was people's issues weren't the issue. So even though everybody came with a different presenting issue, I have anxiety, I have an eating disorder, I'm in an unhappy marriage, I have problems with, finances. Everybody had something else, some other story, and it was tragic, a lot of their stories, but they were also fascinating. What I realized is the story wasn't what they were telling me. Underneath the story was something much more true. And so their issue wasn't the issue. What we like to say, Toby and I in our work, we say, your issue with the issue is not the issue. I'm sorry, the issue is not the issue. Your issue with the issue is the issue. There was something they weren't talking about. It wasn't their finances that were the issue. It wasn't their weight that was the issue. It was how they felt about their finances. It was about how they felt about their weight. How do I know this? Because I just told you that example of two people who had cancer. It wasn't the cancer that was the issue. It was how we felt about the cancer that was the issue. I felt like it was the next great adventure. And that's why I treated it like it was a great adventure, and it treated me the same way. That's why I can go around all over the world and tell you about my brother shaving my head, amongst other things. It was also this time that they made me stay in the hospital over Shabbos, and I was very depressed, even though I'm not a depressed person, but I was really depressed about it. I didn't realize at the time that mostly I was depressed because I needed a blood transfusion. So I was very, very miserable because I just needed a blood transfusion. And I was just lashing out at everybody, and one of the doctors came over to me and she says, "Don't be sad." And I was like, "What? Are you just telling me not to feel what I feel?" And she says, "No, you're sick. You're a cancer patient. So Make-A-Wish Foundation is going to come and give you whatever you want. They'll just grant any wish. You should start thinking about your wish, about what you think that they should grant for you. Did you start thinking about your wish?" And I said, "Yes, of course, I thought about my wish." She says, "What are you going to ask for?" I said, "I want an Uzi submachine gun." And she says, "What?" I said, "Yes, because if I had an Uzi, you wouldn't make me stay in the hospital over Shabbos." And she says, "Well, I don't think they would give kids with your attitude an Uzi." I said, "That's fine. If it was up to me, I wouldn't give people with your attitude a license to practice medicine." So that was, and I get to say these stories. Oh, that's just a drop in the bucket. I get to say these stories all the time because I made a choice in my mind to see cancer as an adventure. My issue with the issue, right? Cancer was not my issue. It was how I chose to relate to cancer. That's where my bechira was. That's where what my issue came down to. The issue always comes down to choice. So, after I was listening to hundreds and hundreds of clients, something else happened. That's where my 3 different careers came together. When I was listening to the issue that they actually had with the issue, I realized that a few simple themes came up again and again and again. And I'll tell you about them in a minute. Everything I'm talking about, by the way, is Chassidus 101. If anyone ever studied any sort of Chassidus, all Chassidic teachings start with the same basic principle. That Machshava, Dibor, and Maisa are the 3 articles of creation. And we like to talk about Lamaisa, right? Make it happen. Get the action done. When I went to therapy, and my therapist wanted, Machshava, so thought, speech, and action. Machshava, Dibor, and Maisa. And that's when it clicked for me what my issue was with the therapist who wanted to put me on medication. Because I kept saying, I actually had no problem with medication. So what was my issue? And it took me many, many years to figure it out. She was going to Maisa, when that was the last of the 3. The first had to come with Machshava. And we weren't focusing on my thoughts. She was focusing, you know what she told me? She said, I think you have no choice. I think you just have to move. It's obviously that you don't enjoy living in your community. I think you have to move. And I looked at her and I was like, you're not listening to me. Did I ever say I want to move? What about anything I told you made you believe I wanted to move? And she was so busy throwing advice, the Maisa at me, take medication, move out of your community, that she missed the obvious. It starts way before that. It starts with your thoughts. It continues with the way you speak about your thoughts. And only then are your actions affected. We think choice has to do with our actions, and they don't. They have to do with our speech and our thoughts 1,000 times more. And so I realized that when I was talking to my clients about their issues, and I'll be honest with you, When I first began, I was very young, and I had a messiah complex. I thought I had to fix everybody. And that was very similar to that therapist that didn't do such a good job with me. I was giving advice all the time, because I have a perfect life, obviously. I can guide everybody. And then, of course, I was getting burned out, and also I was getting frustrated, and also it wasn't working, until I realized that they're not actually telling me about their issues. They're talking about their finances, they're talking about their marriage, they're talking about their health, but they're also talking about their feelings, about what they're thinking, about how it's affecting them. And I realized that at the end of the day, it all comes down to changing your perspective. But then something else happened, and I took it a step further. I would have clients that come back from many sessions, right? So as soon as they resolved one issue in their life, or they thought they resolved one issue in their life, or even they hadn't resolved yet that issue in their life, they started talking about another issue in their life. And I would listen to them officially open up a new document. You know, they were opening up a new issue. And I'm listening to them, and I'm like, I feel like I heard these words come out of your mouth already. So, like, we're talking about a different issue, but it always comes down to the same things. You feel abandoned, right? So you feel abandoned in the bedroom. You feel abandoned financially. You feel abandoned by God. You feel that abandoned by food, because no matter how much you diet, it's not affecting you. You're not getting the weight you want. And I was realizing that these patterns were happening across the board. And what people wanted, those very, very common themes, 3 basic things: love, safety, and belonging. Think about it. Think about the things that you think that you need most. And do not tell me that it's $1 million in the bank. I would also like $1 million in the bank. But if I had $1 million in the bank, what else would I have? Why is it so important? Oh, because if I had $1 million in the bank, I could breathe easy, which means I would feel safe. Or if I had $1 million in the bank, I could dress like my next door neighbor, who's always dripping in diamonds, and then I would have the feeling or the illusion of belonging, that I fit in. We all want some variant of these 3 things: love, safety, and belonging. And if you really, really sit with it, you'll see that for yourself. If you haven't reached one of these 3, then you haven't gotten to the bottom. I've proven this. I've proven this with my students, 11th graders. They were all able to do this. Love, safety, and belonging. And that's when I realized that no matter what I was practicing, whether it was breath work or my intimacy counseling or hypnosis, it was always coming down to the same thing. Your issue is not the issue. What you're dealing with in life is not the surface. It's underneath. It's how you feel and your perception about this thing. So I came up with a hypothesis. And it was a quiet thing. I'm not usually a very quiet person. Usually I just speak everything that's on my mind. But, you know, I'm afraid of getting things wrong. So I don't like sharing things unless I'm pretty sure I have it, like, very well. Yeah, I don't, and then I make it sound very casual. Like, oh, I just thought about this. And people are like, you're so smart. I'm like, I know. You know, really? You think so? Amazing. Yeah, but I came up with a hypothesis a few years ago, and I was very quiet about it. But I was kind of testing it out until I had it proven for myself, and then I did. What I hypothesized was that, and this is not my saying, I'm not the only one who says this, how you do anything is how you do everything. Your relationships, right? If you relate to, it's always the same pattern, again and again and again. But I realized that at the end of the, how you do anything is how you do everything. At the end of the day, if you spend time with people long enough, they won't surprise you. It's very easy to put on a mask, but for a short period of time. But if you spend enough time with someone, you're going to see their patterns, and you're going to say, yeah, she always does this. This is her thing. Sometimes you have to get to know them a little further. I can't say that you're always going to see this on the surface, but how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? Picasso, with his money, with his anger, and with his drink. Because when it comes down to it, underneath it all, you're the same person, and you can't escape it. But I came up with this hypothesis that essentially, when people were coming to talk to me about issues, they were coming to talk to me about 5 main issues that show up in most of our lives. Food. Thank you. Food. And food is a very broad issue because it's not just weight. It's not the weight. It's the relationship you have with food. It results in weight or how you feel about your body, but food. People were coming to talk to me about intimacy. But intimacy, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it more specifically, is sexuality, because it's not about being in relationship. It's more the relationship I have with myself, and that's why food is limited to food. It's not weight. It's not your body. Intimacy is more about your relationship to your body, your relationship to self, your sexuality, which doesn't mean literally the bedroom. It means your expression of life force energy through your body. So food, intimacy, money. Money is a life force energy. Breath is a life force energy, which I can't spend too much time talking about because that's a whole other subject. And most people don't know enough about breath and why it's a life force. They just accept that it is, because breath brings us to life. And the last one, which should actually be the first, is God, religion, spirituality. All 5 of these are life forces. Food gets transformed into life force energy, provided that you're eating good food. Your body knows how to transform food into life force. Breath is very obvious. It's the first thing you did upon being born. You took a deep breath and you welcomed life into your body. Money is life force, because if I gave you an hour of my time, what I essentially gave you is an hour of my life force energy. So then you have to give me an exchange, an hour of your life force energy. But if you don't have a service to offer me, what you're going to do is give me a placeholder for that life force energy, which is money. And then I can spend that money on whatever feeds my life force energy. So money is a placeholder for life force energy. Sexuality / intimacy is a very obvious one for life force energy, because it is through this that we create and bring more life. And God is the most obvious one. All of these 5 were the 5 life force energies. I've experimented with other, like if coffee is one of those, it's on the fence. Somebody has challenged me if time is a life force energy, and it's not. Time is a construct. It's not, for a completely different reason. It's not a life force energy, but I don't want to go into it. And I've challenged this, and I really nailed it to these 5. All of these represent your life force. So people were coming to me talking about their issues with money, or their issues in the bedroom, or their issues with their weight and their food. And all I was hearing is, this is my issue with how I relate to life itself. On the surface, these issues look different. On the surface, the people look different. But because all of these issues are so closely linked to your life force, that when you're talking about one of these issues, what you're really talking about is, this is my belief system. This is how I relate to life. So I even created this worksheet and I tested it on people. What caused me to do this? People would come to me for intimacy issues, because that's what I do. But it's something that we find very hard to talk about. And I would watch people get uncomfortable, and I would watch people hold back, because that's quite natural when you're uncomfortable. But you don't want people holding back, because they really want to work on themselves, and you want them to get the most out of their work. So you want to make them as comfortable as possible. And I would tell people, okay, instead of the word intimacy, why don't you replace it with money? Just say the word money instead. And instead of the bedroom, just say the bank account. And then people would start talking. Okay, so when it comes to money, my husband and I obviously share a bank account, right? It's not just me. And then they would continue talking, and then they would be like, wait, that's actually my financial situation. That's so weird. And I would test this again and again and again, and I would have people switch around the words because of the awkwardness, or I would do it in my head because, hello, does it look like I ever needed to lose 100 pounds? I didn't. So when people would come to me and talk to me about their struggles with weight or with diet, sometimes I would ask myself, am I having a hard time relating? So I would then switch their word out to money. And I would ask myself, oh, do I understand them better if I, in my own head, use the word money? And I found that I did. So I realized that these words, if you do them correctly, and it does take practice, there is a science to it, and I don't have time to teach you the science, these 5 are interchangeable. And that was amazing, because that brought all of my work together, because this is my TED Talk. I'm not just a hypnotherapist. I'm not just a breathwork facilitator or an intimacy counselor or someone who runs retreats and speaks on stage and has written books and had cancer. I'm all of those things, but really what I learned is how you do anything is how you do everything. You want control over your life, any area of your life. It doesn't start with your bank account. It starts with what you believe about your bank account. Different people have different amounts of money in the bank, and they walk around life completely differently. Some people are devastated, some people are motivated, some people just don't care, some people just trust Hashem that much, right? Some people are in denial, but it's the same amount of money in the bank account. So what's the difference? What they're choosing to do inside of their head. And what's interesting was that when I was hired to teach, remember we were discussing what subject? And I always had a problem with Hebrew subjects. I don't know, I think I was like a little bit dyslexic growing up, and I struggled reading, and I have a lot of insecurity around, reading and, stuff like that. So we were discussing what subject, and you were like, I don't care, just come and teach any subject. And then we looked at what was open, what they needed teachers for, and the subject that they needed was tefillah. And I was like, no, not happening. just not happening. Like I don't know. Like, do I have to daven? Do I actually have to be the kind of person who davens a lot to teach tefillah? Because I can't do this if I'm a hypocrite. So we tried to figure out a way to make it work, and we did by changing the name. I did not teach a subject called tefillah. I taught a subject called avodah shebelev. Wow. And I walked into my 11th and 12th grade classes, and I told them, put away your siddur. You will not be taking them out this entire year. You are not ready to daven from a siddur. If you need translations, that's what Google and ArtScroll are for. If you need mefarshim, that's what Google and ArtScroll and your fathers and Amir Hashem husbands and brothers are for. But I am here to teach you something that Google and ArtScroll can't teach you. And that is avodah shebelev, getting in touch with your heart. And we spent about 7 months meditating. I taught 15 and 16 and 17-year-old girls how to meditate, how to close their eyes and get so still and so silent, to have tears pouring down their face within 3 minutes of just thinking of someone's name or just thinking of the words in their siddur. It took time. It didn't happen on the first day of school, but it happened. That is avodah shebelev. That is tefillah. Pesach time, we finally opened our siddur. And I didn't have to teach them any translations, and I didn't have to teach them any mefarshim, because when I allowed them to open their siddur and I ran them through their first open siddur exercise, every girl in that class not only was able to do it, but cried and felt something. And I was jealous of myself, because I wanted that when I was in 11th grade. But I'm glad I'm glad the next generation got it. We always like to say that tefillah changes everything. Davening changes everything. If you just daven hard enough, that you'll get what you want. But that's not true. Every single person in this room knows it's not true. You've davened for something that you didn't get. So it can't be that just reading Tehillim gets you what you want. We're missing an essential component. You daven, and then you're going to affect change. But how do you daven? Do you know how you're davening? Are you just reading words? Or is it an avodah shebelev, really coming back to your heart again and again and again? Hashem, you're davening, right? I need money, I need money, I need money. And Hashem says, honey, that's not true. You don't need money. You have me. But you keep saying, Hashem, I need money, Hashem, I need money, Hashem, I need money. And what you're not hearing is Hashem saying, no, you don't. Check again. What's underneath the money? What do you really need? I need to feel calm. Okay, why? Because when I have money in my bank account, I feel safe. I can sleep at night. I feel safe. And then when you say, Hashem, what I really need is safety. When you can open your siddur and say, what I really need is safety. Help me feel safe. Then Hashem says, of course, I'm right here. Hashem will not always deposit $1 million into your bank. That's not your life path. That's not what you were meant to do. That's not what you were meant to have. But Hashem will never, ever deny the truth of a broken heart. But you have to be able to get into your broken heart. And that is avodah shebelev. That's where real change takes place. When you can get into your mind, when you can get into your heart. Before you ask for what you want, you have to go in and ask, why do I want it? What is it really going to give to me? We're just going to test this out for you. I don't know if it's going to work 100% because, like I said, I can't really teach you the science of it. But try this for yourself. If I give you a little prompt, okay? My greatest shame around money is, answer in less than 3 words, okay? And do this for yourself. My greatest shame around money is not enough, right? Wanting more, I have too much, I don't know. What is your greatest shame around money? Nail it in under 3 words, or 4 words. Now, ask yourself, what is my greatest shame around food? I found food. Not enough. I never feel like I'm full, right? Discipline. My greatest shame around, my greatest frustration, my most difficult thing around money is discipline around spending. Well, that's my greatest shame around food. It's the discipline. That doesn't mean you're not disciplined, but it's your greatest struggle, staying disciplined. How about this one? Finish the sentence. Obviously, do this in your head. Nobody needs to know this much about you, okay? I think wealthy people are blank. Okay? I think wealthy people are blank. So people give me a range of answers. Greedy. Some people say, I feel like the wealthy people have made it. They are respected. Right? What? Blessed. Okay. I think people who can eat whatever they want are blessed. Right? Usually it's the same answer. Usually it's the same answer again. How about this one? I think that people who are very religious, spiritual, and close to God are blessed. It's always going to be the same answer. Sometimes when people do it at first, they have a different answer because, again, they're telling the story. But I always help them get under the story to that one-word line, and that one word is always the same. It's always the same. So that's when I knew that I wasn't facing 3 different careers. I was practicing one. And by studying these different fields, I was able to see clearly how it always came down to the same things: our thoughts about life, our thoughts about love, our thoughts about safety, our thoughts about belonging. Our thoughts about life are what create the life that we actually live. And you know the Tzemach Tzedek says, tracht gut, wird sein gut. And you always have it on these cute little magnets on your fridge. Tracht gut, get sein gut. No, it's not true. It's not true. My life stinks sometimes, you know. It's not a platitude. He meant it very, very seriously. Don't tracht gut. It's not as simple as don't worry. We call that toxic positivity. It's not, Hashem loves you. Yeah, I know he does, but it's not just tracht gut. Work on how you think. Work on your perceptions. Take some time. Notice your thoughts. What are you thinking? Because those thoughts become your reality. You know what? What if I can prove it to you? Want to try something? Because I am a hypnotist, and I am a breathwork facilitator. So let's bring a little bit, not a lot, because, you know, let's bring a little bit, just a little bit of that into what we're doing here tonight. So what I'm going to need from you is, I know you're all taking notes and you're really comfortable. I'm going to need for you to clear your laps, okay, and sit straight and put your feet on the floor. And take a deep breath. Okay? You don't have to look at me when you do this because you're going to be having your eyes closed. Not yet, just in a minute. Before we have your eyes closed, before I have you close your eyes, I'm going to ask you to do something with me. I'm going to count until 3. And when I say 3, your hands are going to be on your lap right now. But when I say 3, you're going to bring your hands up and you're going to clap and you will hold. You will clap and freeze, okay? 1, 2, 3, clap. Now look at your hands and you're going to notice one hand is higher than the other. Right? Usually happens because our brain hemispheres are always alternating. You can drop your hands now. Our brain hemispheres are always alternating, which is something I did not know till I studied breath work. Do you know that your nostrils alternate because they come from different hemispheres, and every 15 minutes there's a different nostril that's dominant? We had to do this for like almost a year. We had to have a pocket mirror in our pockets at all times, and we had to like breathe with our nose onto the mirror and like monitor like which nostril is active when, and what does that mean for my brain chemistry. So yes, there's a reason why when you clap, one hand is higher than the other. It doesn't mean anything. It's just how you work biologically. So now what I want you to do is uncross your hands, put them on your lap. Keep in mind for yourself which is the smaller hand. I'm going to have you close your eyes. Yeah, which was the smaller hand? Remember you clapped? The lower hand? Right, the lower hand. One was higher, one was lower. Think for yourself which was the lower hand. Now you're going to uncross your hands and put them gently on your lap. You're going to close your eyes, and I'm going to run you through a very short meditation. As you close your eyes, you're going to take a deep breath into your body. Without trying to change anything, there's nothing you have to do. I just want you to notice how deep in your body the breath goes. It's different for everyone. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just notice if your breath is as deep as your throat, or maybe your chest, or maybe your belly. You might notice that as you notice your breathing starts to change automatically. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. It happens by itself. And I'm sure that you'll start noticing other areas in your body where your breath is going, like your shoulders. Or the tip of your nose, you might be feeling your breath. Because really, breath fuels and powers every part of our being. So as you breathe, I want you to use your imagination. And I want you to take a deep breath and imagine, just as silly as it sounds, imagine putting your breath, channeling it all the way into the hand that was lower. Breathe in deeply and bring your breath all the way into the lower hand. Now we're going to do something a little interesting together. You're going to keep breathing, and I am going to start counting up from 1 to 10. And as I do, you are just going to imagine that the lower hand becomes bigger and bigger. Every breath that you bring into that hand is going to be as if you are blowing up a balloon. Everybody knows how to blow up a balloon, so you're already very good at this. So taking a deep breath, number 1, bringing that breath all the way into that hand. 2, imagining that hand expanding, getting bigger and bigger. 3, bringing your next breath into that hand. And you can put a little smile on your face because it works better when you're happy. Everything works better when you're happy. 4, bringing the next breath into that hand, allowing that hand to expand, becoming bigger and bigger. 5, breathing in. 6, if this is feeling silly to you, yes, it should. Life is fun. Have fun with this. 7, getting even bigger now, blowing that hand up like a balloon. 8, come on, even bigger. You can feel that hand expanding and stretching and maybe even becoming a little tingly. 9, we're almost there. 1 last breath, all the way in. And 10, now clap. For most of you, the lower hand just became your higher hand. For some of you, you need therapy. No. Why is your hand tingling? You just put breath there. For most of you, your lower hand became your higher hand. For some of you, that didn't happen. Why? Because different things work for different people, and it's all normal. But usually what I find, if it didn't work for you, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either you're the kind of person who's very skeptical. You don't just take in information so easily. You want to filter your information, you want to think about it a lot, and that's a beautiful quality, as long as that filter doesn't become a wall. So for the ones who didn't work, ask yourself, are you the kind of person who filters her information very, very carefully? That means it's going to take you time to resonate with this idea. Some people are not very good visuals. They don't do very well with this kind of process because this requires a lot of visual imagination. Some people do different kind of processes. I don't have the time for different processes. Also, some people really don't like changing their thoughts. But also, if your hands tend to come up more even both times, it's because you're somebody who works very hard at balancing both parts of the brain. And that's beautiful. There could be any reason why this didn't show up for you in the way that it did, right? You were watching, right? You know, she's a very balanced person, right? So what's the point? This worked, I would say, for about, 85-90% of you. That's a nice percentage. You can't win them all. You're not ice cream. What? Right? But it's okay, right? Raise your lower hand, right? This worked for a nice percentage of you. Very, very quickly. You didn't have your eyes closed for long. For about 2 minutes, you had your eyes closed, and you were already able, without any effort, to affect physical change in your life. That's how powerful your thoughts are. Of course, it's not as simple as, change your thoughts and your life will change within 2 minutes. but it has the potential to. I say this a lot when I talk to teenagers. If I ever do this exercise, it usually works better for teenagers than it does for adults because they're still reading Harry Potter and they're still open to fantasy. But what I tell them is, when I speak in camps in the summertime, I usually tie it into sinas chinam. I usually say, imagine, if your thoughts can change your body so quickly, just imagine when we talk about sinas chinam or ahavas chinam, if we can change one tiny thing in our mind, pick one person to love or send love to, or decide not to judge or be dan l'kaf zchus, you know how quickly you're going to affect change? But you're not kids, and I'm not talking about sinas chinam, even though it is the 3 weeks. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about each of us living the life that we deserve to live. Our best futures are in our hands. No, they're not actually. Because before in our hands, they're in our hearts, they're in our mouths, and they're in our minds. So people like to come over to me all the time and say, oh my gosh, you're fascinating. I want to know everything about you. You're so interesting. It sounds like you have the most amazing, adventuresome life. And they're not wrong. I really, really do. Toby can tell you. My life is so fascinating. There's always something going on. And when I say there's always something going on, it's not drama. I don't do drama. But there's always something fascinating and passionate and exciting and adventuresome going on. But only because I choose it. Life is always happening to you too. Think about the last time that life was quiet. It never is. You wait for life to be quiet, right? You tell your friend, we'll get together when things calm down, and then 6 years pass and you still haven't gotten together because life doesn't calm down. Life is always going to be busy. Life is always going to be happening. But you get to choose. Does life happen to you? Or does life happen through you? Does life happen to you, or does life happen through you? I have chosen from a very, very young age. I made a decision. I am not a victim. Cancer did not happen to me. Anxiety and depression did not happen to me. I am not a passive participant in my life. These things happen through me. I am an open vessel. I am not a victim. I am a vessel. And I open myself up to life experiences. I choose my life. I can't always choose what will happen, but I choose what I think about what happens, I choose how I feel about what happens, and I choose how to respond to what happens. A few years ago, my husband and I went on a date night. We never do this. We just never do this. And we decided to go on a date night, of course, Erev Yontif. Like, there's no better time. Erev Yontif, we went on a date night. We come out of our date and our car was towed, which was so ridiculous because we had parked legally. We found out later it was a total mistake. Whatever, go sue the city. But the point is that we came out of our date, which was beautiful, and our car was towed, and it's Erev Yontif, and we're stuck in the city, and we have no idea what we're going to do. And I told him, our beds are going to be slept in tonight. I don't know how we're getting home. I don't know if we're getting our car. I don't know if we're going on a train. I don't know if we're taking an Uber. But I'm sleeping in my bed tonight. So now the only question is the bridge between now and me getting into bed. That bridge is our choice. That bridge is our adventure. So is this an emergency or is this an opportunity? And we decided to make it an adventure. And we trekked across Manhattan and we made it to the Pound, which was still open, and our car was there, and we got our car and we're bailing out our car, and then this lady in front of us starts crying. And she's crying at the corrections officer. I don't know what they're called. She just cries over there. She's like, I know it's not about you. It's not about my car. It's just my friend died today. And my best friend died. And she was just going on and on about her best friend died. And I had just read a great book about death and the afterlife. And I said, hey, I know it's none of my business, but can I recommend this book to you? And she says, no, I don't believe in the afterlife. I'm Jewish. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, Judaism doesn't believe in the afterlife. And I'm like, Rabbi, right here, with a big beard. And my husband says, yeah, the Judaism has an afterlife. You should read the book. And she's like, thank you. Now I know why my car had to be towed. I thought my friend was dead to me forever. Now I know there's an afterlife. And now I know why I had to have that adventure. But I wouldn't have had it if I wasn't open to experiencing it. Because if all I saw was the emergency, then all I would have been focused on is getting my car out and getting home. I would never have stopped for the 2 minutes to talk to the lady who was crying in front of me. My life is full of adventure. I don't even remember half the stories I go through. I teach courses online, I give them again year after year. So my promise is that anyone who has ever taken a course with me is not only welcome, but encouraged to join every single time I give it free of charge. Because I feel like a lot of this work has to be redone again and again. So it's like once you're in forever. So I'll give my courses, and it's always done over Zoom. And as I'm teaching, which is the same lecture as last year, there's always somebody who types in, yeah, it's like that story you told last year about your kids. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, the story. And they're remembering the stories I said a year ago. I have no idea. I don't write them down. I don't remember them. Why? Because there are always stories. There are always new adventures. Why? Because I choose them. I am not a victim. I am a vessel. I am not someone who reacts passively to life. Like, oh, this happened to me, and then I react to it. I am someone who very, very much creates my own reality. You know what the difference, and this is a cutesy thing, you know what the difference is between the word react and create? Where you put the C. It's really a matter of where you choose, what you choose to see, how you choose. It's really a matter of perspective. React versus create. It's where you put the C, and it's your choice, your perspective. Just yesterday, 2 days ago, I called somebody, a mentor of mine, for advice. And I said, I'm not actually asking for advice. I don't need advice. I'm a grown-up. I can take my own advice. Thank you very much. What I want from you is perspective. This is how I'm viewing this story. I'm viewing it from these 3 angles. Please tell me if I'm missing something. Is there another perspective to this story? I no longer ask people, or anyone, I don't ask for advice. I ask for perspective. Because if you can broaden your perspective, if you can see things a different way, you will change your life. So, what do you choose to see? I hope that we will all choose to see the positive, and maybe be zoche to see the coming of Mashiach very, very, very soon. Thank you.
Really, really beautiful. Okay, ladies, dinner is going to be served. They're trying very, very